Come on over.
Hi everyone, this is Luke again, and welcome to Serious Sunday. It is a scorching midsummer's eve here in Atlantic Canada. Kind of muggy, not so nice. I've been keeping my fan on, which has kept me relatively cool, but I'm recording right now, so I'm just going to tough it out. Speaking of having trouble keeping cool, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch recently. I'm not planning on talking about how the chat in Overwatch is getting a little bit overly sort of unpleasant and or toxic, but more to the point, I had a thought lately while playing Overwatch that I'm noticing a lot of people seem to have some trouble understanding sort of how the objectives work in the game. So I wanted to do just a very brief talk today about the objectives in Overwatch and how I understand them to be sort of meant to be played, and sort of some questions that I have in general, and kind of wanted to know if you've been playing the game, if you have been sort of noticing the same sort of behaviors in general. Now, by no means am I a very good competitive player. My rank floats between 42 and 47 in general. So it's not spectacular by any right, but I do alright. You know, I'm not bad. I main support, so I tend to think of myself as a team player, but I have noticed some weird sort of behaviors by people insofar as how the objectives are handled recently. So yeah, I wonder if a lot of people just have not come from games like Team Fortress 2, for example, which are very sort of objective based with like King of the Hill and payload type maps, or if because of the sort of widespread appeal of Overwatch we're getting a lot of people who don't quite understand how these game modes work, or if maybe I'm just experiencing confirmation bias because a lot of the teams I get put onto don't spend a whole lot of time sort of focusing on winning the objectives of the matches or not. But anyway, yeah, people just kind of run ahead a lot of the time. They like to sort of end up getting caught out on their own, and they seem to think that by having a high kill-death ratio, they're somehow carrying their team, while the tank and the healer, maybe only those two, in some cases, are hanging out in front of the point or on the point, or escorting the payload toward the end, when, you know, if they weren't, absolutely nobody else would be there and the whole thing would kind of fall apart. People seem to have sort of a disproportionate understanding of the relationship between the combat in the game and sort of the achievement of the game's sort of predefined goals, which is to say that, you know, in a map like King's Row, for example, where you start out with sort of a King of the Hill type thing, where people are trying to push onto one point, capture that point, and then it becomes a payload map after that. You see a lot of people getting onto the point and fighting there, but a lot of the time you'll see a lot of players just kind of fighting around the point, or chasing enemies off as they go looking for health packs or something like that, and kind of getting distracted from holding the sort of main objective, the one thing that gets you the ability to win the game. Now, I'm not saying that every single member of the team at all points in times has to be glued completely to the point. I have no illusions that that is something that's even really a good idea, especially with things like Junkrat's Riptire, for example, being able to completely take out a group of players all in one fell swoop if they're too well grouped up. Same thing with Diva's Self-Destruct, but that's more, I think, a strong mechanic of how the game gives the defending players an ability to sort of scatter attackers, while it also gives attackers the ability to knock out a large and sort of otherwise impenetrable group of defenders on the point. But no matter what, the idea, as far as I understand it, is for people to be on those points and battling there for sort of dominance over that one area. But you do see a lot of people who will play like Soldier 76 or Reaper or Genji, who are absolutely nowhere near the point and just trying to, I guess, rack up a kill count, thinking that that must be good for their stats or something like that. I honestly have no idea, but it's frustrating, I guess, as somebody who is very sort of goals oriented like I am, to be standing on the point as Lucio most of the time, and being fully capable of healing these people, but being unable to just because they overextend way too far. And of course, you know, then they get frustrated with me because I'm not following them into oblivion and healing them, which I absolutely will not do. I refuse to, because yeah, that's just a good way to lose the game. But consistently, every time that I have won the game or been on a well or high performing team, or have at least made it most of the way in a payload map and not quite been able to get that last little push because the enemy team has a very strong defense, which is totally valid, and I love losing those kinds of games. It's always been when the team is focused on that one objective, not running around and battling at various other points on the map, which inevitably seems to happen when either team is overly disorganized, right? And that disorganization really kills you, you know? It's not the only contributing factor to people losing in these competitive matches, but it is a big one, because players will get caught out alone, and just by general necessity, these games are designed so that if you're alone and you're the wrong character for being alone, which in many cases the DPS characters kind of are, you're just going to kind of get yourself killed and therefore be out of the game long enough to make your team that much weaker. And in a 6 versus 6 game where it's very tightly balanced, to be 6 versus 6, that can be a big problem. But you consistently still see these people running way out into sort of the great beyond of the maps and battling it out in places that are really not meant for being a combat choke point as much as like extra inroads to the point where you can get around difficult defense or something along those lines. But yeah, I just don't get it. This whole episode really is just kind of motivated by that weird sort of saltiness that I'm feeling about a lot of my recent matches. I've even run into that same problem playing with people that I know and trust to be relatively good at the game, where they will just kind of let themselves get, I guess, a little bit too cocky and start fighting too far away from the point. But I try to contain my disappointment and not make a big deal about it, but ultimately this is a team game. If they're not working together with their team, then the team inevitably will fail. And I wonder if that is a difficult concept for some people to wrap their heads around. We have so many of these games where a single player can rack up an entire kill streak or kill the entire enemy team consistently, but I don't think this is one of those kinds of games. And yeah, there are going to be players who can just dominate other people because they just have the skill level to do that, but overall I think the game is meant to be one where people group up in an area that's designated as a attack or a defend point and fight in these sort of well defined choke points instead of going off and fighting on their own. And I see that a lot, and it weirds me out. I just don't understand why people do it. And so if you are one of those people, and I don't think you're going to self-identify as somebody who plays the game quote-unquote badly, but if you are, then I'm telling you right now, I think you're playing the game badly. Why do you do it? Why run out and fight the other team when your point is not being captured by anybody, or when you need to kind of put your feet on the point to stop other players? Do people not realize maybe that when the payload is moving toward the final objective, that if you're standing close enough to the payload, it doesn't move, even if the enemy team is there? Like, you don't have to kill them, you can just be standing there. It's kind of the way the whole thing was designed. You're supposed to be fighting around this mobile point. But instead, I have actually been on teams where our team tank will be consistently backing away from the point as if it's getting too close, like they're afraid of getting run over by the point, when, you know, stepping forward a meter in game would have stopped the point from moving forward and kept the enemies in a better choke point, that sort of a thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's a thing that happens, and it doesn't necessarily completely grind my gears, but I just think it's very strange, and I hope that maybe Blizzard will find some way to tutorialize that better, or sort of drive that point home a little better, or maybe just if people consistently lose, they'll start to either understand how they're meant to be succeeding in the game, you know, that kills do not necessarily equal wins, or if they will just kind of drop out because that's not the kind of game that they want to be playing. I don't know. It's a fantastic game. It's really good for teams, and if you play well as a team, you do pretty damn good, generally speaking. So I don't know, like, it's weird to me. You know, even a mediocre player like me can still win matches because they understand the way that the game should be played. I don't know. Anyway, that's sort of the moral of my story today. Play as a team, move as a team, get on the point as a team, stand on that point. Don't stray too far away from it, and you'll win more games. Hey, it's a weird, funny concept, but I think once you grasp it, and once all of those people who are having trouble grasping it do, the game will become a lot more interesting, and they'll still get those fights. Hey, it'll be great. And that's it for me for today. Yeah, too much Overwatch talk, I guess. You're also getting it every Monday and Friday right now, so you know what? If you don't want to hear that much about Overwatch, then I'm perfectly happy to try and find better topics for Serious Sunday, so let me know. Drop a comment down in below, and I will take it to heart. Otherwise, though, thank you very much for watching, as always. I hope that you have a great rest of your Sunday. Play a little Overwatch. If you see SBK in there, say hello to me. I'll say hi back. Although, for some reason, my voice chat is kind of broken in the game right now. I can't get it to work, no matter what I do. Troubleshooting, working on it. Anyway, thanks very much. Take care.